You're drinking tea in a cafe in Karachi. You've been coming here for 6 weeks. Same table, same order, same newspaper. The man sitting 3 tables away is worth $25 million dead. He has no idea you exist. Nobody does. Your phone vibrates once. You glance at it. One word on the screen. Green light. You don't react. You don't look around. You don't do anything that a normal businessman wouldn't do. You fold your newspaper carefully. You take one final sip of tea. You check your watch like you're running late for an appointment. In 90 seconds, a drone will turn this cafe into rubble. The man with the bounty will cease to exist. So will the waiter who just refilled your cup. So will the elderly gentleman playing chess by the window. Collateral damage. Acceptable losses. Words that look clean on paper. You have 60 seconds to walk out of here without drawing attention. You stand. You leave cash on the table. Exact change plus tip. Nothing memorable. You walk toward the door. Not fast. Not slow. Just a man heading back to the office after his morning tea. You're 2 blocks away when the explosion rattles every window on the street. Car alarms shriek. People run toward the smoke because that's what people do. You keep walking in the opposite direction. Just another face in the crowd. Tomorrow's newspapers will blame a gas leak. The intelligence agencies will know better, but they won't know about you. You don't exist. You never did. There's no application for this job, no recruiter, no posting on any website, no interview process that normal people would recognize. They find you, and by the time they find you, you're already among the most dangerous people on Earth. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, CIA Special Activities Division. You've already done things that will remain classified for decades. You've operated in countries where America officially had no presence. You've killed people whose names will never appear in any report. Had no presence. You're the top fraction of a percent. The elite of the elite. And you think you've reached the ceiling. You're wrong. A man approaches you one day. No uniform. No rank insignia. No identification of any kind. He looks like an accountant. Soft hands. Unremarkable face. The kind of person you'd forget 5 seconds after meeting him. That's intentional. That's the whole point. He asks you a simple question. How's your Arabic? You tell him it's functional. You learned it in Syria, in Yemen, in places that don't appear on official deployment records. He nods. He slides a folder across the table. Inside is a single sheet of paper. No letterhead, no classification markings, no agency seal. Just words. The pitch is straightforward. There's a unit, no official name, no patch, no documentation. The military denies its existence. The CIA claims ignorance. Congress thinks it's buried in someone else's budget line. You would become invisible. Here's what that means in practice. Your military records will be altered. They'll show a transfer to some forgettable training command in the middle of nowhere. Your family will believe you have a desk job. Something safe, something boring. You'll miss birthdays, you'll miss anniversaries, you'll miss funerals, you'll call when operational security permits, which won't be often. If you die in the field, there will be no body returned home. No flag-draped coffin, no honor guard, no 21-gun salute. Just a star carved into a wall in a building you'll never see. No name beneath it. Just a star among dozens of other nameless stars. The man asks you one question. Are you in? You think about your wife, your kids, the future you imagined, the normal life you thought you'd have someday. You say yes. You have no idea what you just agreed to. 3 days later, coordinates arrive. A location somewhere in the American South. You're not entirely certain which state. That's by design. You've survived selection before. Not entirely certain which Delta pushed you until your body failed. SEAL training tried to drown you for 6 months straight. You thought you understood suffering. This is different. They already know you can run. You already proved you can shoot. You already demonstrated physical toughness beyond what most humans can comprehend. Now they want to know if you can vanish. Day 1. Surveillance training. They hand you a photograph. Average-looking man, brown hair, medium build, forgettable face. Your task is simple. Follow this man through a city for 8 hours. Don't let him spot you. Don't let anyone notice you're following him. You've done this in combat zones. You've tracked insurgents through hostile urban terrain. This should be easy. You fail within 2 hours. You didn't notice the woman pushing a stroller. She was counter-surveillance. She identified you 3 separate times. Once when you crossed the street with too much purpose. Once when you checked your phone at an inopportune moment. Once when you made accidental eye contact with a shop owner who was also part of the exercise. The instructor doesn't raise his voice, he simply shows you photographs. Photographs of you taken by people you never detected. Start again. You repeat the exercise. You fail again. The target entered a restaurant and you hesitated at the entrance for 2 seconds too long. Amateur mistake. A professional walks past, circles the block, finds another vantage point. Start again. Day 3. You fail because you wore the same jacket as the previous day. Someone noticed. Day 5. You fail because your walk is too confident. You move like a soldier. Soldiers are memorable. Day 7. You finally complete the exercise. 8 hours, 0 detection. You feel a moment of pride. The instructor doesn't acknowledge it. He simply hands you a new photograph, a new target, a new city. This one is harder. The target knows he's being watched. He's actively testing you. This continues for 6 weeks. Watched. You learn to alter your gait, your posture, the angle of your shoulders. You learn that baseball caps make you memorable, that gray clothing makes you invisible, that people remember faces but rarely remember bodies. You learn to become forgettable. The language training is relentless. You already speak Arabic. That's not enough. Now you learn regional dialects, the specific slang from Sana'a, the hand gestures common in Aden, the way men from different tribes sit differently in chairs. Subtle things. Things that mark the difference between blending in and being identified as foreign. You learn to argue about football like you grew up in the streets. You learn which phrases immediately expose you as an outsider. You learn to curse with the exact intonation of a native speaker. They make you watch television from target countries for hours, soap operas, news programs, game shows. You need to understand every reference, every joke, every cultural touchstone. You need to know which actors are famous, which politicians are corrupt, which team won the championship in 1987. You spend 3 hours learning to drink tea correctly. Not the taste. The ritual, the posture, the gestures, the way you hold the glass, the way you blow across the surface to cool it, the way you set it down on the table when you're finished. Every culture does it differently. Get it wrong once, and you're marked as foreign forever. Then comes the immersion test. They drop you in an unfamiliar foreign city. No money, no identification, no support network, no weapons, no extraction plan. Your mission: survive for 1 week, complete 3 objectives, don't get caught, don't die. Day 1. You're hungry. You sleep beneath a bridge alongside homeless men. You listen to their conversations. You absorb the local slang, the rhythm of speech, the things that mark someone as belonging. Day 2. You steal food from a market stall. You feel a moment of guilt. Day 2. Then you remember this is training. Day 3. You befriend a local businessman. You tell him you're a traveler who was robbed. He believes you. He buys you dinner. He introduces you to his associates. Day 4. You complete your first objective. Photograph a specific building from a specific angle without being detected by anyone. Day 6. All 3 objectives complete. You're extracted. You think you passed. You barely passed. The washout rate is 90%. And these aren't weak candidates. These are the most elite soldiers on the planet. Delta operators, SEAL snipers, Green Beret team leaders, Special Activities Division veterans. They wash out because they can't become invisible. The guy who brags about his combat record. Gone. The guy who needs to dominate every room. Gone. The guy who can't function without recognition. Gone. The guy who looks like a soldier. Gone. The guy who's too handsome. Gone. People remember attractive faces. The guy who's too tall. Gone. You can't hide 6 feet 4 inches. They keep the gray men, the forgettable faces, the ones you couldn't describe 5 minutes after meeting them, the ones who can sit in a room for an hour and leave 0 impression on anyone's memory. Average height, average build, average face, extraordinary capabilities hidden behind aggressive mediocrity. You graduate. No ceremony, no certificate, no photograph with commanding officers, no handshake with generals, just a tap on the shoulder, an address, a plane ticket, a new name. Welcome to the activity. The name changes constantly. Gray Fox, Centraspike, Task Force Orange, the Army of Northern Virginia, the Intelligence Support Activity. By the time anyone identifies one designation, it's already been changed. That's intentional. Even acknowledging the unit exists is classified. The organization is small, maybe 200 people total. Compare that to 70,000 across the rest of Special Operations. You could fit the entire unit in a hotel conference room. 2 branches. Human intelligence. That's you. You go places. You become people. You build relationships with sources who don't know their sources. You extract information through conversation rather than interrogation. SIGINT. Signals intelligence. The technology specialists. They can track a phone across continents. They can intercept encrypted communications. They can locate people who have spent years learning to stay hidden. Here's how the ecosystem works. SEAL Team 6 kicks down doors. Delta Force raids compounds. Rangers seize airfields. They're the hammer. You're the one who identifies the nail. Without you, the shooters are blind. They're sitting on helicopters with nowhere to go, waiting for coordinates. You find the targets. You map the networks. You identify the safe houses. You locate the high-value individuals. Then you transmit the information and disappear before anyone knows you were there. The operators get the medals. The operators get the movie deals. The operators get the books and the Netflix documentaries. You get a classified file that no one will ever read. The reality of your new existence. No base. You operate from embassies, safe houses, hotels, apartments rented under fabricated identities. You never see the same office twice. No uniform. Ever. You dress according to your environment. In Germany, you look like a German businessman. In Pakistan, you look like a Pakistani merchant. In Texas, you look like a guy who sells insurance. No rank. The person beside you might be a master sergeant, might be a CIA case officer, might be an NSA analyst. You won't know, you won't ask. You have a cover identity. Actually, you have multiple cover identities. Documents, passports, credit cards. An entire fictional biography for a person who doesn't exist. You become that person. You think like that person. You react like that person. Until the mission ends. Then you become someone else. Your first operational deployment. A city in North Africa. You'll never specify which one. The target is a financier. Call him Hassan. That's not his real name. He moves money for terrorist organizations across 3 continents. He's never touched a weapon, never assembled a bomb, never pulled a trigger himself. But his money has killed hundreds of Americans, soldiers in Iraq, civilians in embassies, passengers on aircraft. On paper, he's a legitimate businessman. Import/export. Real estate development, consulting services. He files taxes. He employs staff. He attends charity galas. He also transfers $5 million monthly to people who manufacture suicide vests. The policymakers want him alive. They want his network exposed. They want the entire infrastructure mapped, not just one node eliminated. Dead men don't reveal their contacts. Your assignment? Get close. Map his world. Identify vulnerabilities. Don't get detected. You arrive as a German businessman. Klaus Richter. Industrial machinery parts. Terminally boring specialty. Your cover is impenetrable. Business cards, a functional website, a secretary in Munich who answers calls and takes messages. She believes you work for a consulting firm. She's technically correct, just not in the way she imagines. You rent an apartment, middle-class neighborhood, nothing that attracts attention. For 2 months, you do nothing interesting whatsoever. You buy groceries. You visit the gym. You establish predictable routines. You eat alone at restaurants. You attend industry conferences and distribute business cards. You meet with local businessmen to discuss contracts that will never materialize. You are weaponized boredom. Then you begin appearing in his orbit. The gym where he exercises 3 times weekly. You join. You use the treadmill. You lift weights. You never look in his direction. The mosque where he prays on Fridays. You attend. You pray in the rear. Prays on Fridays. You leave before he does. The cafe where he drinks tea every Thursday afternoon. You become a regular. You sit in the corner. You read newspapers. You order the same thing every visit. You never approach him. You never speak to him. You don't even make eye contact. You simply exist nearby. A ghost in his peripheral vision. Week 3. You know his schedule better than his wife does. You know he departs for work at 7:45 each morning. You know his driver's name. You know he meets a woman on Tuesdays who isn't his wife. You know he lunches with a man in expensive clothing every Monday at the same restaurant. You're mapping his entire existence. His patterns. His contacts. His security protocols. His weaknesses. Every detail flows into reports. Encrypted, uploaded through networks that bounce through 6 countries before reaching headquarters. The color of his vehicle. The driver's license plate. The restaurant's name. The other woman's face. Week 6. You notice an anomaly. A car that appears too frequently. A man who sits with posture that's too rigid. A pattern that doesn't fit the neighborhood's normal rhythm. The target has counter-surveillance. He employs people to watch for people like you. He's survived this long because he's careful. You adapt. You become even more invisible. You stop visiting the gym on days he attends. You change cafes. You create distance. You report the counter-surveillance to headquarters. Within 48 hours, SIGINT has compromised his phone. They're reading his messages, listening to his calls, watching his money move in real time. Every wire transfer, every email, every contact. A breakthrough arrives. He's planning to meet a courier, someone carrying documents from overseas, names, account numbers, a comprehensive map of terrorist financing across 3 continents. This is the jackpot. You're assigned to follow the courier. He arrives at the airport on a Tuesday. Short man. Nervous energy. He carries a leather briefcase like his survival depends on its contents. Because it does, you follow him through the city. He takes 3 different taxis, doubles back twice. Basic counter-surveillance, amateur techniques. You've seen better. He checks into a hotel. Room 412. You report the information. That night, a team you'll never meet enters the room. The courier is sedated. He won't remember anything. The documents are photographed, every page, every number, every name. Then everything returns to the briefcase exactly as it was. He wakes the next morning with a headache. He assumes jet lag. He delivers the documents to Hassan. He never realizes they were copied hours earlier. 1 week later, $40 million in terrorist funds are frozen across 6 countries. 12 arrests. 3 planned attacks prevented before execution. A shopping mall in Paris. A subway in London. A hotel in Bangkok. Hundreds of lives that continue because you sat in a cafe reading newspapers for 6 weeks. Your name appears nowhere. Klaus Richter leaves the country for a business meeting and simply never returns. The apartment is cleaned. The lease is terminated. It's like you never existed. Because you didn't. You receive new documents, a new identity, a flight to your next city, a new name to memorize, a new accent to perfect. The cycle begins again. With the mission that defines your career, a bomb maker, codename, the engineer, responsible for at least 200 American deaths, probably more, IEDs in Iraq that shredded armored convoys, car bombs in Kabul, attacks across Europe that dominated headlines for weeks. He's a ghost, no photographs less than a decade old. The single existing image shows a young man with a beard. He could be anyone now. He never uses phones, never uses email, never remains in any location longer than a week, changes vehicles constantly, varies his routes unpredictably. Even his own organization doesn't know where he sleeps. Routes unpredictably. He's the most wanted man in the world that the public has never heard of. The president wants him eliminated. The entire intelligence community wants him eliminated. The CIA maintains a dedicated task force. The NSA runs specialized monitoring programs. Billions of dollars in satellites, drones, analysts, and technology have failed to locate him for 3 years. Nothing. Then they deploy you. You can't find him directly. He's too disciplined, too paranoid, too intelligent. So you find everyone around him, his courier, the man who carries his messages. You trace him through Turkey, his doctor, the man who treats his diabetes. You locate him in Jordan, his brother, the man who manages his finances. You track him through Pakistan, his wife's extended family, the people who might know which wife he's currently with. For 14 months, your team constructs the network, a spiderweb of connections. Each thread leads to another thread. Each person leads to another person. You're not searching for him directly. You're searching for the shape of the void he creates in the world. You deploy to 3 different countries, each time with a new identity, a new life, a new legend. In Turkey, you're a journalist researching refugee populations. You interview aid workers. You attend conferences. You buy drinks for people who might know something. People who move money for questionable purposes. In Jordan, you're an aid worker yourself. You distribute medicine. You visit clinics. You ask about a doctor who used to work in the area, the one who now treats special patients. In Pakistan, you're a businessman exploring investment opportunities. You meet with local officials. You inquire about construction projects in remote regions. Who's building? Who's buying? Who's moving materials to places where nothing should be built? Everywhere you go, you listen. You build relationships. You find people who might know his location. You never ask directly. Who might know people. You let them talk. You remember everything. The breakthrough comes from SIGINT, 14 months of nothing. Then a single intercepted phone call. A lieutenant mentions a guest arriving soon. A village in the mountains. A compound that's been dormant for years, but suddenly shows activity. You're deployed immediately. You pose as a journalist writing about reconstruction efforts. You have credentials from a legitimate newspaper. References that verify. A photographer traveling with you, who's also activity. She's been embedded in the region for 3 years. Waiting? For 2 weeks, you live in that village. You eat with locals. You drink tea with village elders. You take notes about agriculture and infrastructure and reconstruction projects you don't actually care about. You file stories that will never be published. And you watch that compound from a hillside half a kilometer away. Through a scope disguised as a camera lens, vehicles arrive at night, depart before dawn. SUVs with tinted windows, never the same vehicle twice. Food deliveries triple on certain days. Guards rotate in patterns you memorize. 4-hour shifts. 2 men at the gate, 2 on the roof. Patrols every 90 minutes. You photograph faces. Grainy images transmitted to databases at headquarters. Most return empty. Unknown males. But one hits, not the target. His brother. The financier who hasn't been seen publicly in 5 years. Everyone assumed he was dead. If the brother is present, so is he. You relay everything. GPS coordinates precise to 1 meter. Time patterns documented to the minute. Guard rotations, entry points, weak sections in the perimeter wall, locations of every vehicle, shift changes of every guard, optimal approach vectors, escape routes. You're instructed to leave immediately, no explanation provided. You pack your bags. You say goodbye to the village elder. You thank him for his hospitality. You shake his hand. You promise to send him a copy of the article. His hospitality. You walk out of the village. A car collects you at the edge of town. You're across the border by nightfall. 72 hours later, you see the news. A military operation eliminated a senior terrorist leader. No details released. The host country's government issues a formal diplomatic protest. The State Department issues a formal denial. You know the details they'll never release. You drew the map. You counted the guards. You timed the patrols. Somewhere in Virginia, a star is carved into a wall. Not for you. For the 2 operators who didn't make it out. You'll never learn their names. But you made it possible. The bombs stop. The IEDs stop. At least for a while. You've been doing this for 7 years, maybe 8. You've stopped counting. The numbers blur together. 19 different identities in 14 countries, 5 languages spoken with native accents. You can navigate luxury districts in European capitals and slums in South Asian megacities with equal ease. But who are you actually? The wife is gone. She couldn't endure a husband who vanished for months without explanation, who returned different each time, who flinched at unexpected sounds and couldn't sleep without background noise. The divorce was quiet. She kept the house. You kept a studio apartment you've occupied maybe 30 nights total. The kids recognize you as the father who misses birthdays, who's always traveling for work, who sends gifts from places he can't name. Your son is 14 now. You've missed 6 of his birthdays. Friends don't exist. Your cover doesn't permit genuine friendships. Every relationship is either operational or a security liability. The people who know your real identity can be counted on one hand. Most of them work for the same agency that doesn't exist. The psychological toll is worse than the physical. You've watched people die. People you cultivated as sources. People who trusted you. People whose names you provided to the targeting teams. People who trusted you. That courier in the hotel room. The one whose documents you photographed. He had children. You saw photographs in his wallet when the team searched his belongings. 3 kids. The youngest was maybe 4 years old. You dream in Arabic now. Sometimes you wake up and can't recall your actual name for several seconds. You have to check your passport. The real one. There's no medal for what you do. No parade. No recognition ceremony. When you retire, there will be no celebration. When you die, your family will be informed you had a heart attack at your desk job. So why do you continue? 3 weeks ago, a bomb didn't detonate in a shopping mall in Virginia. 200 people went home to their families that evening. Mothers, fathers, children trying on sneakers, teenagers browsing electronics. None of them will ever know your name. None of them will ever know you exist. That's the only recognition that matters. Most days. The mission that violates every protocol, a nuclear scientist, working for a regime pursuing weapons that would alter history, the kind of weapons that end civilizations. The politicians prefer diplomacy, sanctions, negotiations that extend for years while centrifuges continue spinning. But intelligence suggests something different. The scientist isn't a true believer. He's a hostage to his own government. His family is leverage. His daughter's school is monitored. His wife is followed constantly. He wants out. Someone at a very high level poses a question. What if we extracted him? Not assassination. Extraction. Remove the scientist and his family from a country where failure means an international incident, possibly war. No military assets permitted. No official involvement of any kind. If you're captured, you're a criminal, a kidnapper, a spy. The United States will deny everything. They'll deny you exist, because you don't. Team of 4. All activity, all ghosts. The operation requires months of preparation. Maps. The operation bribes, documents, safe houses arranged through intermediaries who don't know their actual employer. You establish contact with the scientist through his daughter's piano teacher. She's activity as well, has been for 3 years. Embedded. Waiting for exactly this moment. The message is simple. One opportunity, one night. Trust us or spend your life building weapons for people who will use them. He agrees. The night of extraction, the power fails across the district. Not coincidental. SIGINT arranged it. In darkness, you move. The scientist. His wife. His 2 daughters. The younger one is 7. She thinks this is an adventure. You let her believe that. A car to a checkpoint. Forged documents that cost $50,000 to create. A bribe to a guard who believes he's assisting smugglers. A boat across water you'll never identify. 8 hours in total darkness. The little girl becomes seasick. You hold her hair while she vomits over the side. Safe house to safe house for 2 weeks, moving every night, sleeping during the day. Every passing vehicle could be the one that ends everything. The extraction point? An airfield in the middle of nowhere. An aircraft bearing no markings. Handshakes with men who don't offer names. The scientist is debriefed for 6 months. He provides everything. Diagrams, names, locations, timelines. The nuclear program is set back a decade. No bombs, no war. Millions of lives that won't end in a flash of light. The family receives new identities. New lives. A house in a country they've never visited. The little girl will grow up American. She'll never comprehend how close she came. You return to your existence, your next identity, your next mission. You never expected recognition anyway. Years accumulate. You've lost count of identities, of countries, of the stars on the wall for operators who didn't return. 19 identities. 14 countries. 37 operations. 4 close calls where survival was improbable. Operations. You stop tracking the numbers eventually. They don't matter. You're sitting in a cafe. Could be anywhere. Probably Europe. Maybe America. You're just a man reading a newspaper. Gray hair now. Additional lines on your face. Still the kind of face you can't recall 5 minutes after meeting. A young man sits nearby. Fit, alert, trying too hard to appear casual. He holds his coffee incorrectly. His posture is too rigid. He checks his watch too frequently. Amateur. You recognize the look immediately. You wore it yourself 20 years ago. Before the languages, before the covers, before the bodies. He's conducting surveillance on someone. Learning the craft. Probably agency. Possibly military intelligence. Fresh from training. Believing he understands something. Believing he's invisible. He's not. You identified him in 3 seconds. You could teach him things. How to hold a cup so it partially obscures your face. How to use window reflections instead of turning your head. How to time your movements to traffic patterns. How to vanish in a crowd of 3 people. How to become so unremarkable, so gray, so completely forgettable that no one remembers you existed, but you won't teach him anything, because he doesn't know you exist, and he never will. That's the rule. That's always been the rule. There's no retirement party for ghosts, no gold watch, no ceremony, no pension you can explain to the IRS. One day you simply stop receiving the tap on the shoulder. Maybe you teach now. Training the next generation of invisible people in a facility that appears on no map, a building without signage, students without names, a curriculum that doesn't officially exist. Maybe you consult. A contractor with no verifiable history. Hired for skills that can't appear on any resume. Compensated through companies that exist only as legal fictions. Maybe you just disappear one final time. Into a life that's actually yours. A house somewhere quiet. A garden. A dog. A house. Normal things. But part of you remains in the shadows. Permanently. Always listening. Always observing. Noticing the car that passes twice. The man who lingers too long. The pattern that doesn't match the environment. Old habits don't die. They become dormant. Waiting. Because you understand the truth. The world is kept safe by people who don't exist. By agencies that never happened. By men and women who sacrificed everything for a nation that will never acknowledge them. No parades, no monuments, no gratitude. Just a star on a wall. No name beneath it. You were one of them. That kid in the cafe, he might develop into something exceptional. He might wash out. He might die in a country that never knew he was present. He might become one of the stars on the wall someday. Or he might become what you became. A ghost. A shadow. A person who exists only in classified files that will remain sealed for 75 years. By the time anyone reads them, everyone who knew him will be dead. That's the trade. That's always been the trade. You finish your coffee, you fold your newspaper, you leave exact change on the table, you walk outside. The sun is shining, people pass on the sidewalk, couples holding hands, children heading to school, businessmen staring at phones. None of them know. None of them will ever know. That's the point. You step into the sunlight, just another person, just another face. Forgettable, invisible. Gone, and you disappear one final time.